It's a beautiful Tuesday morning, and I am Samson Balogun here on Daybreak Live, Dominion Television, Ibadan. We begin this morning with a political development already drawing mixed reactions across the country. Youth in Kogi State have reportedly raised 100 million naira for the President Tinubu's APC nomination form. Is this loyalty, strategy, symbolism, and something more? We would have a deeper conversation on this issue for the Daybreak Gist this morning. And
I'm Manolo Akpoido. Shortly after that, we'll bring you the weather updates and reports, followed by Daybreak News with key national and international developments you need to kickstart your day.
All right, from then, we'll turn to the newspapers, reviewing the front pages and weighing the argument behind these headlines with Temitope Ishola, a historian and public affairs analyst.
And for Big Story today, the story turns to a deeper structural issue. It's about the federal government's takeover of oil revenues and what it means for state autonomy, fiscal balance, and governance in Nigeria. Joining us for that conversation is Sam Woko, deputy editor at the Nigerian Tribune.
We would also then track the conversations getting traffic across social media platforms on Trend Watch before we sign off on this show.
So now let's get straight into it today. Good morning to you, Sam.
Good morning to you.
Samson, 100 million. It's not a joke.
Well, that's not a it's not a lot of money anyway.
It's not a
yes, yeah, because if you think about how monies are being thrown around in the country and how figures are being announced on a daily basis, you wouldn't really blink an eye when someone talks about 100 million. But then, if you come to personal situations, you probably might feel like, oh, that's a lot of money. But when you talk about the Nigerian context and how politicians mention figures, I mean, it's not that much. So, as people will say on the street, it's not that deep. So, calm down.
You know to go far. You know to go far.
Not that far.
But okay, so let me take it a bit further. Because when you see this kind of stories, for me, what comes to mind is when you say Kogi youth, who are the people in question? If you say Kogi youth, who are the youth? You know, because you might want to, okay, so is it the youth who are gainfully employed?
The youth.
I mean, okay, so because we have to take it from there. If you mention youth in caption, are they the ones that are gainfully employed? Are they the ones that, because if you have to donate 100 million in this present economy, that means you have so much more to give. So you have much more than that in your coffers to say, maybe not individually, but at least every other person is okay. If you are not okay, you will not even drop in that account to say, I want to also contribute. But that's one. Two, who are they contributing the money? I mean, who are they donating the money to?
The president.
I mean, also, so all of those things, because the president already has enough money. It's like pouring just a cup of water into an ocean. It's still the same, but it is a political show. That's where I'm going. Because I know, I would say that this can't be real in the real sense of it. You are giving money to somebody who has money enough. Even before he became president, there were insinuations about bullion vans in his house. I mean, so that's not even a big deal for him. So if you want to say you want to contribute and donate to the president come 2027, it's just a charade. We've seen this before. This is not even the first time. But again, I think I like it when you put it better. Because I think I was reading through comments online yesterday, and some people were asking, I'm from Kogi. Who are these youth? I've never seen them all my life. And it's okay. It's okay that you've not seen them because you can't possibly know everybody. You know, there are just some good philanthropists that would like to donate for a good cause, which is okay. If you want to donate for a good cause, there are many charitable projects you can do. I would say that they are what they call them. They are foundations. They are IDP camps. You can donate to motherless baby. All of those places those ones need it much more than the president. And that's where I'll be coming from to say it is not out of place to donate to for a cause, especially a good cause, right? It's not out of place. We've seen even in the United States where there was a particular group of people coming together to donate for United States president, the current president, Donald Trump. There was a trust fund that was, brought up, maybe a GoFundMe kind of thing. It's okay to donate for people who want to go for it. But I'm saying in the bigger space and bigger scope of that is that how much of impact is this going to make? Especially to the country. If you donate, it's okay, but donate for the good cause, for better causes. There are people who need this money much more than, I know we always have to have needs in society, but can you meet the needs of society instead of meeting the needs of people because you know they can give you back? So I call this an investment. I dare say it is an investment, because it's more like calling the attention of the president to say, look on us, like those like Peter and the disciples were saying to one person at one of the doors to the temple, was saying, look on us, money and silver we have not, but this is what we have. And then it's more like calling for attention. President, we are here, please give us something, let us, because over time now, soon enough, you see that group of people will probably there's going to be something for them, because for whatever story they're trying to push out is political. Come 2027, everything is targeted towards the end. Everybody's trying to do something. We've seen cases where people will have to trek distances, right? They have to trek from one point to another point to say, it's because of this president that is about to become that I'm doing all of this. And all of those sacrifices can be done for some other stuff, right? But I know we've seen a lot of this again.
Well, I do not want to see it from that perspective. I want to see it from an area of people just trying to do what they think is right. And I'll give you evidences.
Yeah.
It is not because President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a certain president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. People are trying to seek his mercies and are probably trying to see what exactly they can actually gain from doing all of that. We have seen it happen in the past, and a few of them. Omoyele Sowore, for example, I think that was in 2019, and even 2023 when he wanted to contest for presidency under the AAC. There was a crowdfunding platform that brought him, some money at that time, even though nobody announced how much was made or how it was spent, but it was quite clear that people raised money for him to contest for the presidency. Away from there, Peter Obi of the Labour Party, and during the 2023 elections, supporters engaged in organized fundraising, including community campaigns like the Fund 40 million ballots donation drive and broader donor contributions to support his presidential ambition. He even traveled as far as the United Kingdom and the United States to source for funds for the election. It is on record. You can check it, and you can fact check. Away from there, Bola Ahmed Tinubu in 2023 wasn't even the president. And some people raised more than 100 million naira for him to buy the APC presidential ticket at that time. And that, for me, I mean, if it was done in 2023, I don't think it cannot be repeated in 2027. And that, for me, is just usually some of the things. Yes, I understand the fact that people will say, oh, that might be some sort of investments. And I mean, you contribute and then you wait quietly to see what exactly you gain in return. That happens. Politics is about interest. People will do things not because they love Nigeria, but because they feel like, if I do this, what will happen in the long run? We have seen people, for example, we have business tycoons in Nigeria who would support all candidates. You go to them, they give you money. You also go to them, they give you money. They are not doing that because they feel like they have monies to throw around. But they know that for a fact, when you eventually win an election, you serve their interest. I mean, they bring you ideas, oh, why don't you work on so-so bill that suits our business and then you can profit more. That is being happened. And it is not only in Nigeria. Lobbying is done everywhere around the world, even in the US. I'll cite an instance. Recently, when Nigeria was being accused of Christian genocide, then there was a report that Nigeria paid so amount of money to a certain lobbyist to make sure that that is not the narrative in the White House in America. It is done everywhere around the world. So people lobby for things. And they don't just lobby by mouth. They lobby by cash. They lobby by, just by kind too. They do things and you were like, well, for someone to have done this, well, maybe eventually when we win this election, we can easily do this. Now, some key notes to take away from there. Public fundraising by citizens, especially crowdfunding and grassroots support, is not relatively rare in Nigerian politics, but it has been visible in the more recent elections. Even Goodluck Ebele Jonathan had a fundraising dinner before the last election, which he lost. And they raised money, and that was used for the purpose of the election. How much was raised, how it was spent, I think it is only Nigeria where monies are raised, and then eventually you don't know, nobody accounts for it. But I don't want to use the usual thing people say. They say the Senate climb. We are saying here too. But then, in some advanced countries, advanced democracies, developed democracies, right? If a penny has been donated to you, you account for every penny because it's not your money. Even your own money, if you are spending it on election, you have to account for every dime you spend and how you spent it. Because at the end of the day, transparency is very much important. It's only in Nigeria that some people are taken to Code of Conduct Bureau. And eventually, nothing is done. And you see some people, overestimating their assets before an election, just because they know that after the election they can amass wealth, and then they can say, oh, I was worth this even before I won an election. So I don't believe the Kogi youths are trying to play politics. But then you can easily think about it in different ways.
In different ways, yeah. But Samson, let's go to the chase of political parties. In 2022, the presidential tickets for APC was set at 100 million. PDP was set at 60 million. 40 million naira. And of course, so this is where I want us to take conversation from. For House of Assembly for APC is 2 million. For House of Assembly for PDP is 600,000 there. That was in 2022 for 2023 elections. And then again, House of Reps was 10 million. House of Reps for PDP is 2.5 million and 3.5 million for Senate for PDP, while Senate is 20 million for APC. APC seems to be on the high side if you look across board from the push of things. But it's okay to say that.
It will be so.
Yes.
Because they're the ruling party.
Exactly. But this is exactly why we have this kind of problems. If we have to pay 100 million naira to contest in the primaries or to get the ticket from a party, it is so much so that there's going to be a way you need to get back your money. And that's why they call it political investment. Because once you invest, you have to get your money. Investing comes with ROI. That's return on investment. You don't just get what you invested. You get much more. You get interest because you have so committed to that financially. And there has to be something concomitant to what you have submitted in terms of your money. So I keep saying, is it possible we bring down that money? Because an average person, Samson wants to contest for presidency now. You need 100 million. Samson, that's breaking your bank. You have to like pay through your nose. It's so much. That's why it's so easy for people to now say, see, whatever I see, through tooth and nail, I will make sure I get my money. Because it's okay. Everybody will understand that. Even when you get there, when you start affording funds, they will say, okay, it's okay. You still need to amass. And sometimes people go the greedy way. They don't just take the 100 billion, they don't take 200. They take billions and then trillions. Sometimes you saw what Abacha did, for example, and that was not even now that they now pay.
It's still paying us.
So we still get dividends from what Abacha has looted for so long. And you ask the question, how do these people always get to do this? But it's a systemic error, like we always say.
Some will argue with you anyway that Abacha never stole.
Well, it's still up for debate. But averagely, you've seen, if it was just that one political head or one public office holder stole, and then in another 5 years another stole, it will be acceptable maybe, but it's not acceptable because every year you see a story of somebody, Alice Madreke, you see another story, dear Zani, you see one story, you keep saying, and it's not as though those things were just allegations. Eventually when they take it to court, but sometimes they might just settle it in court. But you understand that there's a case to be settled. So we've seen this trajectory. And it has created a kind of understanding, a narrative in the country that everybody now believes, if I get to power, I must steal. An average person who is not into politics will say, if I get a chance just to become the president one day, I'm going to take a lot of money to myself. And that's the narrative. And it's not right. It's not even, so if for example, now, let's say that maybe, because I'm trying to look at how to cut the cost of governance, right? If you don't have to pay so much and you get there, even if you are taking so much, people ask you questions. Baba, you didn't do so much to get to this point. You didn't pay like they used to pay. So why you? So I'm thinking, if they bring down those tickets, the candidacy and the presidency ticket and all of these tickets for people, maybe a lot of people would now say they want to do it more, and maybe some other people would not be able to take in as much as they are doing now from the coffers of the government.
I quite understand where you are coming from, Manu. And it is from a point of concern and on how expensive politics is in Nigeria. But then I want you to know that while it has its disadvantages, political parties will tell you there are advantages to it. You can imagine if you say presidential ticket sales for 100,000, for example, as we speak. Maybe half of Nigeria would want to be president. Now, the job now lies on the political parties because we don't have individual candidacy to now prune down the numbers. And while doing that, you prune away a lot of people, and it's really a cumbersome exercise for the political parties. And no one really wants to go through that through that route. But however, politics in Nigeria became a mess. it has always been a mess anyway, because we have not really been practicing democracy the way others would say they practice it in developed democracies. It became a mess in 1999. And why I said that is, you would say it was a return to democratic republic, and then Nigerians would experience democracy again. But unfortunately, the moment the sitting president at that time, that was Olusegun Obasanjo, decided to please the legislators so some things could be done, which meant that constituency projects were allowed. Lawmakers were now given responsibilities to have projects. That was when the watchdogs became more or less like pets, okay? Why did I say that? Lawmakers were meant to do oversight functions, supervise projects, see how far the government has gone when it comes to budgeting and execution. Unfortunately, they have now joined the party, okay? Who is to do the oversight function if you're also doing projects? So that part of democracy died a long time ago. Now, everyone is rich, okay? You can buy anything. You have access to funds. These people get, for example, you get 100 million naira for constituency project. You just come, you buy 5 grinding machines, you buy this, you buy that. You still have about 70 million naira in your account, and then you distribute all of that, you disappear. In the next 3 years, nobody sees you. And then a year to the election, you come back because you think you have amassed a lot of wealth. You think you can bully everybody and buy them over. And that is what has been happening. We have so many legislators in Nigeria, especially, I will cite a number of cases in Ibadan. Nobody sees them for 3 years. And then when it is time for an election, they come back. You start seeing them masquerading themselves as the savior and messiah of the people. Unfortunately, they are not. And the people think, yes, this is the only time we can make money off you, so they take the money. So politics in Nigeria became expensive from 1999 under the Olusegun Obasanjo administration. I really do not blame subsequent presidents. Umaru Musa Yar'Adua would have been one of the best presidents in the history of Nigeria. In fact, with the agenda he had on ground, till today I still feel like he had so much to do. Unfortunately, he could not do it because of his health at that time, and eventually passed away. Now, that takes us to subsequent administrations too. We had Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, so much intent but bad structure. Too many people who never really wanted anything to be done in Nigeria were in that cabinet. We saw what the likes of Dizani Madueke and some other people did under his watch. It was during that time we got to know that chimpanzees do swallow money and snakes do swallow money. That was done in phases. Until today, nobody has really been able to prosecute anyone successfully about that. The only prosecution we are seeing now is the one being done in the UK to Dizani Alice Madueke. Now, away from there, after that, we had the President Muhammadu Buhari administration. The only thing I could see at that time was the fact that, some dead projects were resuscitated. Oh, there was meant to be a rail track here. Why don't we continue from where the last administration stopped? They did. I mean, when it comes to continuity, Buhari administration was top-notch. But unfortunately, policy was whack, in the sense that there were policies that you really do not understand where this is going. And oftentimes, you bring out a policy, and then the people say, oh, we don't want that, and then, the policy is gone. Why? Because you never really thought it through before you brought that policy. And then let's come to Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration. He never promised instant miracle. He had always been saying, and over again, even during the electionary process, that we are going to go through a form of reform. And he has not desisted from saying that. He has continued to say that it's a reform, it's a process, and it's going to take time. And if you check what we've been saying in the market when it comes to reduction in food prices, I, for one, believe it's not artificial. If it is artificial, the trajectory with which it has gone down would not have been so smooth. Okay? So there has been processes in place. All I want to believe this administration is doing is that make politics less expensive. Okay? I want that to happen. But are there policies to make it happen like that? Now, a president will refrain from taking some giant steps, some decisions, because he knows that he's coming back for the second time. So he would want to be careful about decision making. And once that is done, you are giving them power to be more ruthless when it comes to stealing. And we have seen it happen over and over again. The president had to write off debt of the NNPC because he feels like there's no way we're going to get this money back. Let's just forget about it and start from, a new phase, a new chapter. And that will continue to happen if people are really afraid to take decisions. What is the role of the executive order when you are still afraid of, will I win the next election if I take this step? So, when someone said there should be a single term of 8 years, a single term of 6 years, they had a reason, okay? Do that your one single term and leave. At least we'll be sure that within 6 years you're able to do this, and you'll be ruthless with your decision making.
So there's no point thinking about how do
the
I win the next election.
Yeah. So you will be so ruthless with your decision making. If you are a radical change maker, you do it.
Go that way.
And then you are done. But would that happen in a country like Nigeria? I don't think so.
It's really a question that we should really consider. And I was also thinking about it. If you have to look at Nigeria from the leadership perspective, you will see that we failed a lot. Because in leadership, it's also about vision, right? If there's a vision, then every other person can always come back to say, oh, yes, a vision, there's something we're working on. But we've seen a lot of discontinuance in projects, discontinuance in policy, and this it's become one too many in the country. That's the trajectory. If I come now, I say, okay, that project, I see, it's going to make sense because some people started it, and if I do it, it will be to their account.
To their credit.
Oh, let me do it let me not start it now, I'll do it later. And they don't get to do it. And then we have that moribund, we have that dilapidated, we have that deserted.
Let me cite a very big instance from this one you are saying. There was a road that led to Abeokuta from Ibadan. You are going to Abeokuta from Ibadan, right through Akpata axis.
Oh, yeah.
That road was started by the last administration in Ogun State. And for years, Governor Dapo Abiodun spent the first 4 years. He never touched that place. And then he started the next 4 years. You can imagine how bad that place is. Till now.
Yeah.
So what exactly is the governor doing when it comes to continuity? Because he had a feud with the last administration. He doesn't want to continue where that one stopped. So also, if you are a governor, a chairman, start projects you know that for a fact you are going to finish. Or you know that you are going to finish payment to these contractors and nothing will stop them from finishing this project even if I'm no longer there. But then it's a topic for another day.
Absolutely.
Continuity in governance. Let's take weather report on this show this morning. I will be starting with the ancient city of Ibadan. Weather in Ibadan, as we speak, is a little bit on the average, as it is on 30 degrees Celsius as we speak. It will remain same later in the morning, but then it will be partly cloudy with humidity expected to be around 1%. And in the afternoon, it will rise to 35 degrees Celsius, mostly cloudy, humidity at 24 degrees Celsius. It will drop drastically to 28 degrees Celsius in the evening. The weather will be clear. Humidity is expected to be around 5 degrees Celsius, while it will drop further by 2 degrees Celsius to 26 degrees Celsius overnight. The weather will be mostly cloudy, humidity at 8% in the ancient city of Ibadan today.
And in Lagos, from Ibadan now, the weather feels like 33 degrees Celsius, just about 3 degrees different from what we have in Oyo State particularly. And then it starts in the morning with 29 degrees Celsius, expect to be mostly cloudy. So there's maybe a chance of a very cool atmosphere because humidity is at 24 degrees, 24% I meant to say. And later in the afternoon, there's a rise to 31 degrees Celsius, about 2 degrees Celsius rise. And it's expected to be partly cloudy still at 20 degrees Celsius, or 20% humidity, I meant to say. And evening, there's a sharp drop to 28 degrees Celsius, and the weather then becomes mostly clear at 5% humidity level. And overnight, it drops much further by 1 degree Celsius to 27 degrees Celsius, expected to be partly cloudy at 10% humidity in Lagos State today.
All right, moving on from the Center of Excellence to the Gateway State this morning, and that's talking about Abeokuta in Ogun State. As we speak, weather it's a little bit different to that of Ibadan at 32 degrees Celsius, just 2 degrees different as we speak. But then it will maintain the same as later in the morning at 30 degrees Celsius, with weather being partly cloudy, humidity at 3%. There will be a promise of scattered thunderstorms in the afternoon with weather rising to 35 degrees Celsius, humidity at 39%. It will be clear, just like Ibadan, in the evening, and it will be around 28 degrees Celsius with humidity at 5%. It will drop to 26 degrees Celsius, a replica of what we have in Ibadan today, and it will be mostly cloudy overnight at 26 degrees Celsius, humidity at 8% in the Gateway State, Abeokuta, Ogun State today.
And taking a far drive from Abeokuta now to Port Harcourt, River State, the weather is so different from what we have in the southwest at 22 degrees Celsius across board. And in the morning, there's a promise of showers at 71% humidity level, and the weather will remain at 27 degrees Celsius with a promise. Of course, there's going to be showers in Port Harcourt today, so if you have to visit Port Harcourt today, maybe by plane, then you know that you are expecting showers. And later in the afternoon, there's also an increase of 3 degrees Celsius to 30 degrees Celsius, and then the weather will become mostly cloudy, maybe still gathering of sometime, maybe another rain to come. But evening, the weather then drops sharply to 24 degrees Celsius, about 6 degrees Celsius drop in the evening, and it becomes partly cloudy. And overnight, it also drops by 2 degrees Celsius to 22 degrees Celsius. It's expected to be partly cloudy in Port Harcourt, River State today.
All right, I'm moving to the southeast, and that is the coal city state, and that's talking about Enugu in Enugu North. As we speak, weather is currently at 26 degrees Celsius, and later in the morning, it will rise to 30 degrees Celsius, partly cloudy, with humidity level at 1%. And by afternoon, it will rise further by 7 degrees Celsius to 37 degrees Celsius, while being mostly sunny. And by evening, it will drop to 28 degrees Celsius, partly cloudy. And overnight, it will drop further by 4 degrees Celsius to 24 degrees Celsius, partly cloudy, with humidity expected to be around 8% in the coal city state today.
The same as the largest state in Nigeria, that's Suleja, with the coal city state Enugu this morning, because the weather feels like 26 degrees Celsius across board as well. And later in the morning, it will be very sunny with no chance of rain or showers expected at 31 degrees Celsius. It's going to be sunny also in the afternoon, moving 5 degrees Celsius up to 36 degrees Celsius, also expected to be very sunny. And in the evening, it drops drastically to 29 degrees Celsius, and it's expected to be mostly clear. And overnight, it drops much further by 4 degrees Celsius to 25 degrees Celsius to become quite clear overnight in Suleja, Niger State today.
All right, from Suleja to the center of learning, and that is Kaduna. Weather currently feels like 20 degrees Celsius in Kaduna as we speak. And later in the morning, it will rise to 26 degrees Celsius, being sunny right there. It will remain sunny in the afternoon at 33 degrees Celsius. And by evening, weather will drop drastically to 25 degrees Celsius while being clear. And it will remain clear overnight at 21 degrees Celsius right there in Kaduna State today.
And it's going to be a sunny day in Makurdi, that's the Middle Belt, Benue State particularly, the food basket of the nation, because the weather is at 23 degrees Celsius across board. And in the morning, it's going to be mostly sunny. There's no chance for rain maybe across the states today in Makurdi particularly, because the weather in the morning starts at 31 degrees Celsius, mostly sunny, emphasis on mostly sunny. And yes, afternoon, it rises much further by 7 degrees Celsius to 38 degrees Celsius, still expected to remain sunny with no percent of humidity, so there's no chance for that as well. And in the evening, there's a sharp rise to 29 degrees Celsius, and the weather becomes partly cloudy. It will remain mostly clear overnight, dropping also by 6 degrees Celsius to 23 degrees Celsius overnight in Makurdi, Benue State today.
All right, from the food basket of the nation to the center of commerce, and that is talking about Kano. This morning, weather in Kano State as we speak currently feels like 18 degrees Celsius, relatively different to what we've been seeing so far. And later in the morning, it will rise to 25 degrees Celsius while being sunny. It will remain sunny in the afternoon with temperature expected to rise to 31 degrees Celsius. And it will remain clear in the evening and overnight at 24 degrees Celsius and 19 degrees Celsius respectively in Kano today.
And from Kano now to Federal Capital Territory in Abuja, because the weather feels like 25 degrees Celsius across board, and the morning is going to be mostly sunny at 30 degrees Celsius. And later in the afternoon, it rises much further to 36 degrees Celsius, so it's expected to be very sunny. And then it drops by 7 degrees Celsius to 29 degrees Celsius in the evening, expected to be mostly clear. And overnight, it drops much further by 5 degrees Celsius, and the weather will become clear at 0% humidity level. So there's no chance for rain or any wet situation in the Federal Capital Territory today, because everything's going to be sunny across board.
Well, that's all we can take on weather reports this morning. So thank you for joining us on the show so far. Do well to link up with us on all socials, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Dominion Broadcast, and on X, formerly Twitter, at Dominion Cast. You can watch us live on our website at www.dominion.org.ng. dominion.org.ng. Do also subscribe to our YouTube channel at Dominion Broadcast and like our Facebook page at Dominion Broadcast Television. All right, let's go on a quick break. When we return, it is time to take the news. We'll be back.
Live from the heart of the action. Welcome to the nerve center of Next Level Broadcasting.
This is the OB van, where the studio meets the street.
Equipped with cutting-edge cameras, crystal clear audio, real-time switching, and broadcast control, we don't just capture moments, we deliver the experience live.
Anywhere, anytime, from stadiums to red carpets, breaking news to buzzing festivals, weddings, birthdays, and all sorts of ceremonies. We bring the world to your screen in real time.
It's not just a van, it's a complete mobile production house, a command center, a broadcast beast.
This is more than a broadcast. This is the OB van difference. Live, loud, limitless.
Ready to go live? Like never before. Book the OB van today and take your event to the world. One powerful broadcast at a time.
To book, call 0705 506 1061 or 0916 101 1061. Email marketing@dominion.org.ng or visit our socials on Instagram @Dominion Broadcast.
Dominion Broadcast, your channel of choice.
Hello and welcome to Daybreak News on Dominion Television. My name is Anoluakbo Idowu. Former Kaduna State Governor Nasir El-Rufai has filed a ₦1 billion lawsuit against the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission (ICPC) and others, alleging an unlawful invasion of his Abuja residence. In the suit filed at the Federal High Court in Abuja, El-Rufai is asking the court to declare that the search warrant used to enter his home was invalid. He claimed the operation violated his constitutional right to dignity, personal liberty, fair hearing, and privacy. He's asking the court to rule that any evidence obtained during the search cannot be used against him in any investigation or trial because it was gathered unlawfully. A fire outbreak has reportedly engulfed the old terminal of Murtala Mohammed International Airport in Lagos, a facility currently undergoing a multi-billion-naira renovation. Details surrounding the incident remain unclear as of press time. But the affected terminal, which is part of the airport's older infrastructure, is currently being renovated as part of efforts to upgrade facilities and improve passenger experience. Confirming the development, Director of Public Affairs and Consumer Protection at the Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria, Henry Agbebire, said authorities were already on the ground managing the situation. He added that the agency's emergency response unit had swung into action to prevent further damage. Moving on, at least one person lost their life when herdsmen and bandits attacked Olojo, Ojantele, and Ediku Ijo villages in Apa, local government area of Benue State. According to security sources, the bandits struck, opening fire sporadically and sending residents into panic. Troops and tactical units quickly confronted the attackers in a gun battle, forcing them to retreat into nearby bushes. During the raid, Ngbede Okwe Agbabaidu, a resident of Ediku Ijo, was shot dead. His body was subsequently taken to the local mortuary, and military authorities have deployed area surveillance and are combing the surrounding areas in the bid to locate and apprehend the fleeing assailant. The Benue state government has refuted claims trailing the proposed rehabilitation center in the state. It explained that the facility is intended to rehabilitate victims who were coerced into criminal gangs, not to reform hardened terrorists. The Director General of the Benue State Peace and Reconciliation Commission, Josephine Haber, made the clarification while responding to mounting concerns over plans to establish a disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration center. She stressed that the initiative should be viewed against the backdrop of the state's prolonged security crisis. And out of Osun State, where Osun State House of Assembly has passed a bill amending some sections of the state local government law. The bill was passed after the third reading at the Assembly's plenary in Osogbo. Meanwhile, the Assembly's Committee Chairman on Public Accounts, Lawal Bamidele, had earlier presented and submitted the committee's report on the bill with intended recommendations. The Speaker of the Assembly, Adewale Egbedu, had called for the adoption of the report, while Babajide Adeomi, the majority leader, moved the motion for its adoption. The motion for the bill's third reading was also moved by Adeomi and was thereafter passed. And in business, Chairman of Dangote Group, Aliko Dangote, has announced that Nigerians will have the opportunity to purchase shares in the $20 billion Dangote refinery within the next 4 to 5 months, which is between June and July of 2026. Dangote made this known when the group chief executive officer of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited and top officials paid a visit to the refinery complex in Lekki in Lagos. Addressing an NPCL delegate, Dangote reiterated that the refinery would soon be listed on the Nigerian stock market, allowing individual Nigerians to participate in the ownership of the multi-billion-dollar facility. Dangote also reiterated that Nigerian shareholders would have the flexibility to receive dividends either in Naira or in US dollars, noting that the refinery generates foreign exchange earnings. And finally in sport, Nasarawa United technical advisor Mboas Mangot has expressed satisfaction as the team returns to winning ways in Nigeria Premier Football League and PFL. The Solid Miners ended their 4-game winless run with a 1-0 victory over Bender Insurance at the Lafayette City Stadium on Sunday. John Dosher netted the only goal in the 40th minute, and Mangot believes that the team can consolidate on this performance in the remaining fixtures in the NPFL. And that's about it on Daybreak News. You can visit our website on www.dominion.org.ng to watch us live and interact with us. You can also follow us across our social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and LinkedIn at Dominion Broadcast, and X at Dominion Cast. And as Daybreak News, I'm Anwoluakpo Ido. Thank you for watching. State police can't wait. That's one of the biggest captions you find on the newspapers this morning. The front pages, of course, are filled with other stories, but this caption is making the rounds, and that's very important to note that the president has said state police cannot wait maybe any longer. That's exactly the story. But of course, thank you for staying tuned. And this is the newspaper headlines analysis, where we check into the print, bring out the stories that are making the rounds across the nation, the high points, the low points, and sometimes the midpoint, because we have to meet at at a midpoint sometimes, especially as the story sometimes they are difficult to really comprehend because of some of the intricacies and the complications of some of the stories. But of course, this morning we'll get into the print, and if you don't have a newspaper with you, don't you worry, we've got you covered on this dial. All you need is just stay glued to us. We have every story on every print this morning. And talking about the big caption on the Nation newspaper particularly, that's where I'd like to start, and that's about state police cannot wait. The president has come out to say, you know what, I've heard your cries, I've heard everything you've projected, you've said about state police, especially now that Nigeria is in a serious dire situation, security situation across board. Talk about Plateau, talk about Benue, talk about Makurdi, talk about Borno, talk about many other states in the northwest, the northeast as well, the central, the mid-central, and all of that. There's a lot of insecurity ravaging those communities, and it's not a good one. But it seems like the president has said state police can't wait. Tinubu has told governors. That's the big caption on the Nation newspaper, as you can see this morning. Meanwhile, on the top corner, the left-hand side, you see a release of 7.2 trillion naira capital component of budget 2025 begins. That is also a good one right there. Meanwhile, talking executive order, right next to that story is executive order on oil gas remittances into federation accounts is lawful. There's been that conversation between legal consultants and legal experts saying that yes, the executive order on oil gas remittances into the federation accounts is it lawful, is it unlawful? But it seems to be a make I don't want to say make believe, but it's a story to really check into this morning, and that's about the story of an executive order. Meanwhile, BRT fare to go up by 13%, and that's in Lagos, I guess. And Ondo government seals deep port and $4 billion fertilizer plant deals. El-Rufai sues ICPC for 1 billion naira. That's also something to check out this morning. He said the way they got the evidences they claim they have is unlawful because they broke into his house because the control system of his security door was not given to them, but they breached his fundamental or constitutional human right. That's exactly the claims right there. But we'll keep our fingers crossed as this goes to court, and perhaps we get something from that proceedings to see if there's going to be a 1 billion fine paid by the federal government, or there's going to be a further prosecution of Nasir El-Rufai. Meanwhile, taking on another story, Wike void 485 Abuja land titles following field verification. That is on page 4 of the Nigerian Tribune newspaper this morning. While some were saying 485 Abuja land titles, anyway, how would those even field verification? But we cannot really tell, except you go to Abuja and ask the federal capital territory minister, Nyesom Wike. I'm so sure he's going to say something about this. Meanwhile, 6 injured, flights diverted as fire gods MMIA terminal. That was also on the news just earlier before this particular session, where we told you about the fire that engulfed the portion of the Muritala Mohammed International Airport. And of course, I think it has been quelled now. The fire has been quenched, and there seems to be a bit of renovation as we speak. But of course, we'll still keep fingers crossed and see what becomes of that story in the course of time. Now, President urges spread of development at IFTA. That was when the president made that comment. He said that state police cannot wait, assuring governors to say, okay, don't you worry, we're going to get to the end of this. And I pray it's not just a prayer. I hope and pray it's going to be a reality in the country, because enough of the death toll. We are tired of saying 5 people 10 people. We're tired of calling people by numbers. We want to, because they are souls. They are people that should still be alive. If everything was okay, if the ball was bouncing well, if, like they say, ceteris paribus, if all things were equal. But we know it might still be difficult to get all things equal. But we'll also look out for a way we can have equity, even if it's not equality across board. Now, moving on from that newspaper, now to New Telegraph online print this morning. Of course, what you see right on the caption is 2027 APC puts a seal on purchase of nomination expression of interest forms for Tinubu. That is the big caption right there on New Telegraph. This morning, APC puts a seal on purchase of nomination and expression of interest forms for Tinubu as Kogi youth pay 100 million naira for president's forms. Party interested in good candidates, not money, may review cost of forms downward. That's Nentawe Iwadda. That's APC chair saying that as well. So many things to talk about. Kogi youth, donating 100 million for president reforms. I'm probably going to ask a few persons, perhaps Mr. Toby and maybe Sage, to say, can you donate for the cause of presidency? Can you donate for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu? Maybe not because he doesn't have the money, but just because you believe in his government. But maybe I'll get that after the show. Meanwhile, moving on from that story now. Deportation tally hits 113 as U.S. arrests 19 more Nigerians. There's been that claims, especially when there were a lot of reforms, especially about deportation, the immigration policy in the United States. Donald Trump is not taking it easy. In fact, the Home Office of the U.S. is taking extra and extra measures to ensure that deportation is, right on spot for a lot of persons who have legally entered into the U.S. But there seems to be another claims about the country Nigeria now. Deportation tally hits 113 as U.S. arrests 19 more Nigerians, unfortunately. But we'll see if there's going to be any turnout from this. We hope that, we hope justice will go out for everybody that is required to go out for. But maybe we still have to keep saying that we need to build our country to the point where we become a leader as well, where we become a force to reckon with, not just a force to send away. Because if you have to say there's arrests every day about Nigerians in the diaspora being arrested and being deported back to, sometimes it's not even Nigeria that they deport them to some other places. And there could be a lot of, but I don't want to get into it because there's a conspiracy theory about all of those deportation cases and how it is still political and not democratic. And a lot of times we can only just say a few things about them. Now, moving on from that as well now to see we're out of the woods, dark corner of uncertainties. That's the president saying that at IFTA in Asura was speaking to governors, like we also mentioned. They said that better days are ahead, especially now that state police is knocking. Maybe who will open the door should be the next conversation. If you say state police is something to do, I mean, we've said it, we've been saying it, but how do we implement this? Can we get implementation faster? Can we get it moved and passed as fast as possible because of the dire situation we are in, talking security in the country, Nigeria? Maybe that's another conversation right there to check out this morning. El-Rufai sues ICPC police, yes, for 1 billion naira over Abuja home search. He said they break into his home, so he's not taking it easy. He wants 1 billion naira from the federal government, perhaps the DSS for breaking into, ICPC as well, for breaking into his home in Abuja without his permission. Yeah. Moving on from that now, transporter demand improved security to operate from Southeast on Mondays. That's talking IPOP, that's talking Southeast. Well, we understand what happened after, Soludo was able to bring down that sit-at-home order on Mondays in the Southeast, particularly where it was. And of course, there's been that claims that, oh yes, the sit-at-home order has been, been a pain in the neck for many business owners. They've had to lose millions and maybe billions during the course of time. But it seems like there's a development. But another thing we're seeing, because security operators promise to stay or to stand by, especially when people need it or need them, in that region. But there seems to be another call for more security in that region. Moving on from that story, and maybe away from New Telegraph now to Nigerian Tribune newspaper this one, and see what the Tribune has on its front page. The bold caption reads, Lagos airport fire, 6 injured, 14 trapped persons rescued. That is the big caption on the Nigerian Tribune newspaper this morning. Lagos airport fire, 6 injured, 14 trapped persons rescued. Yes, that's it, as you can find on your screen. And you see also the picture of ESM Wike commissioning something. Of course, that's also part of the story. Tinubu says it reaffirms we will establish state police, and Gencos are crying out, lamenting 6.2 trillion naira debt. That is a big one as well. Page 3 of the Nigerian Tribune is where to catch up with that story this morning. Meanwhile, unfortunately, we have to take another evil report, but sometimes we just have to, because it's our people, and we have to speak for the people whose voices have not been echoed. Now, bandits kill 10 in Plateau. Yes. Unfortunate, but we hope there's going to be, justice for these people. Bonchi villagers flee to Gombe. Adamawa, GOC escapes ambush in Kebbi, and Troops Q5 recover arms. That's about that in Plateau State. Moving on, Odigi Oyegun Obi in power tussle over Edo South ADC leadership. Something to also talk about. Meanwhile, Fayemi is speaking, and this time around, Fayemi, ex-minister of solid minerals, says operators of Plateau mining site were released after I left office. Mine also reopened. Yes, that's about the incident that happened over the weekend, about the mine, the place that became a mess and left a lot of persons dead. So Fayemi is also bringing out something to talk about, that yes, operators of Plateau mining sites were released because the federal government promised to get into the heart of this issue. They said they will prosecute to the very end, but it seems like there's another review. But we'll keep our fingers crossed and see what becomes of this story in the course of time. Inferno started from server room. That's coming from FAN, saying that especially about the Lagos airport fire. Airspace temporarily closed, airport reopened. That is also the way Nigerian Tribune newspaper has put out that story. Lead exposure. Ogun screens 500 Ogijo residents. Yes, that's still on the front border, especially after it was discovered that Ogijo, a particular place, has been known to have lead exposure, especially in their waterways, and because of some issues. But of course, we are seeing that, 500 people in Ogijo are going to be screened. I think this is a good one. Executive Order 9 aligns with the Constitution, doesn't amend PIA. That's coming from Director General of Budget Office today. Of course, you check that story if you want a good read. That's on page 27 of Nigerian Tribune newspaper. Now let's get to the punching punch. Now see what the punch has to punch out this morning. The punching story is still on oil revenue roll. Says presidency defends Tinubu as legal titans split over executive order. That is the big one right there on the Punch newspaper. Presidency defends Tinubu as legal titans split over executive order. That is the story to check out on the Punch newspaper this morning. Petroleum Industry Act violates Nigerian Constitution, says presidency. MBA OPS back Tinubu as critics push against oil revenue reforms. And senior advocate of Nigeria divided over president's directive. That's also about the oil revenue roll that we are still seeing. That's on the Punch newspaper this morning. Alleged genocide. United States Congress panel submit Nigerian report to Donald Trump. Well, maybe they say after the report there's supposed to be a resultant effect of the reports. Maybe we will get to know in the course of time, because United States Congress panel have submitted their reports to Donald Trump about the country Nigeria. Meanwhile, fresh loans. Federal government domestic debt jumps to 77 trillion naira on the top corner of the Punch newspaper. That's where you find that story. Fresh loans, federal government domestic debt jumps to 77 trillion naira. That is something to check out, to look out for this morning. 11 states, FCT borrow 373 billion naira in 9 months, despite higher allocations. Why are they still borrowing if they have increased allocation, especially from the moment of fuel subsidy removal that we now know some states have gotten much more than they used to, talking about the federal government allocation, but it still seems like 11 states are still borrowing as well as the FCT. Maybe we should question how that is coming about. Maybe do you not even generate something Well, that's even another conversation. Meanwhile, convention is also something to talk about for the APC. And this time around, the APC may settle for Iwada and Bashiru. That's the big one coming from the APC as we see their convention approaching for the forthcoming election come 2027. Meanwhile, Lagos International Airport Inferno Grounds passengers spark travel chaos. That is also on the Punch newspaper, something to check out this morning as well. Genco's dump presidency's 2.8 trillion naira debt due. On the Punch newspaper as well, Genco's revolting. Perhaps there's going to be something to look out for and to keep our fingers crossed for in that story. Truck crushes last mile officer, 2 motorcyclists to death, unfortunately, this morning. Now talking FCT polls over the weekend. ADC candidates obedient reject results. I mean, PDP has rejected as well. Some factions have rejected as well in for the FCT polls. Some have said yes, there's a lot of malpractice here and there. Others have said it was free, fair, and credible. There's always that story after elections. It's still the same narrative, especially for political parties. If one party gets to win, the other party is going to contest, and there's going to be a tussle back and forth for a lot of time that the president or the incumbent should start working. They go to court to settle disputes, to settle all of these suits that they file against them. But it's always the case for Nigeria. But sometimes you're saying, can we just look beyond going to court? If you can accept defeat and let the person start working, because at the end of the day, it pays no one. It pays not even the people, because at the end of the day, it's just a fight that we know where to end. Well, you can say maybe if there's enough evidence, like lawyers would say, there's going to be a recall of that election. But I'm not sure that's going to come. But of course, it doesn't stop them from still trying. But just do your job, do what's left for you to do, and then expect the best. Leave the rest to the hands of the INEC and maybe the electoral body, as well as security operators. But let's build a better Nigeria. That's exactly the core. All of this fight and tussle about, APC 1-5, PDP 1-1, how is that supposed to be? It's not as if people are supporting APC and let's go to court. They get to court, they get the judgment, they still say, we are going to appeal this judgment, and it's still the same narrative. But that's just what I think from that angle of things. But moving on from the Punch newspaper now to just take Daily Trust newspaper. Daily Trust is particular about Walida and coalition demanding release and probe. That is that conversation right there. That's the front caption and the biggest caption on Daily Trust this morning. How FCT polls spiked APC opposition rivalry. That is also another read you might want to catch this morning on Daily Trust newspaper. This morning, El Rufai sues ICPC. That's also a story we've talked about. Meanwhile, Mohammed Arina says shift in election day setback for INEC. Mohammed Haruna says shift in election day setback for INEC. Well, maybe that's true. Maybe that's not true. But we will get to see, time will tell, because there's been a lot of claims, even at the House, the Senate House, saying, why we have to shift this is because of the Ramadan fasting. And so some persons are also asking that why would the INEC not even consider this before setting that time? But others have also counter-claimed that, okay, there's no chance because you don't get to know when the crescent, the moon is going to be sighted, right? So that's even up for debate that even if you plan that it's going to be in March or February, you never can tell. But, some are saying you can look at the projections and still look out for ways to set a time instead of setting the time and then it's going to be reset again by another body because you did not look into everything you should look into. Now, moving on from that as well now, reprisals escalate killings in Plateau. That is also the story, the down part of Daily Trust this morning. 9 died in Niger. Lagos road crashes as well. Fire raises Yobe market. I think the issue of fire has been on and on again. Sometimes you might want to say it's because of the weather. A lot of things, many things are dry. Many areas are now arid and not humid. And arid by that, it means that it's dry. The weather, the atmosphere is dry. Even the ambience, what do we call this? The air that is flowing is dry. So everything, it means that once we have that, is one of the boosters of a fire. If you want to have a fire, you need some things to fuel the fire. You need fuel and you need oxygen. So if the oxygen is also present and there's no humidity in the atmosphere, it causes more damage when there's a fire. The fire gets to increase in size and intensity if there are all those fuels and components of fire involved. And now we have to say that people should be careful. Even if you have to leave your house, ensure that you put off every of those electrical appliances. Whatever needs to be put out should be put out. So don't put out fire when you know you cannot quench the fire. And all of this and many more are the things we're talking about. Of course, we'll take some other stories, but 5 terrorists killed in Kebbi. That is also something to check out. This one, in the case of insecurity in the country, has become one too many in the country, and I think it's high time we started looking out for it. I think the administration is doing a bit, but I think there's so much more we can do to get on the right side of things, to get to the point where we can now say, maybe not 100% secure, but we can say at least we know that Nigeria is secure, especially some parts in northwest, northeast, and maybe the middle belt as well is secure to a point where people can go to bed without the fear of gunshots, where people can go to their farms without the fear of gunshots and bullet wounds and all of that in the country, Nigeria. And of course, that is where we draw the curtains on this edition of Newspaper Headlines and Analysis this morning, and we will now switch on to the big story to address a deeper structural issue concerning the federal government takeover of oil revenues and what it means for state autonomy, fiscal violence with Sam Nwoko and Samson Balogun. But that will be shortly after this break. Stay with us.
Live from the heart of the action. Welcome to the nerve center of Next Level Broadcasting.
This is the OB van, where the studio meets the street.
Equipped with cutting-edge cameras, crystal clear audio, real-time switching, and broadcast control, we don't just capture moments, we deliver the experience live.
Anywhere, anytime, from stadiums to red carpets, breaking news to buzzing festivals, weddings, birthdays, and all sorts of ceremonies. We bring the world to your screen in real time.
It's not just a van, it's a complete mobile production house, a command center, a broadcast beast.
This is more than a broadcast. This is the OB van difference. Live, loud, limitless.
Ready to go live? Like never before. Book the OB van today and take your event to the world. One powerful broadcast at a time.
To book, call 0705 506 1061 or 0916 101 1061. Email marketing@dominion.org.ng or visit our socials on Instagram @Dominion Broadcast.
Dominion Broadcast, your channel of choice.
Good morning and welcome to the big story on Daybreak Live. Nigeria's federal structure has long revolved around one dominant economic pillar, and that is oil revenue. For decades, proceeds from crude oil have shaped how power, responsibility, and resources are distributed across the federation. But renewed debate over the federal government's control of oil revenue has once again raised a critical question. Is this arrangement strengthening national cohesion or weakening state autonomy? Today we examine the federal government's takeover of oil revenues and its implications for state autonomy and governance. And joining us is Sam Nwoko, the deputy editor of the Nigerian Tribune. To understand this issue, we must look at Nigeria's fiscal framework. All revenues are centrally collected by the federal government and shared among 3 tiers of government through FAC. While all producing states receive 13% derivation, they do not control the bulk of extraction proceeds. This makes most states heavily dependent on monthly allocations from Abuja. In practical terms, many states struggle to fund salaries and infrastructure without federal disbursement. This raises concerns about the depth of Nigeria's federalism and whether fiscal concentration at the center limits subnational independence. Advantages of centralized oil revenue include redistribution of national balance. It allows wealth sharing across states, including those without natural resources. Let's talk about macroeconomic coordination. Central pooling enables unified national budgeting and economic management. How about strategic control? Oil remains a national asset, and central oversight may prevent interstate disputes. But there are disadvantages too, which includes limited state autonomy. Dependence on federal allocations weakens fiscal independence. Guaranteed monthly revenue may discourage states from expanding internal revenue source. And then if you talk about resource control tensions, oil producing regions often argue the system is inequitable, fueling agitation. And at its core, this debate questions whether Nigeria should retain strong fiscal centralization or embrace deeper fiscal federalism that empower states more directly. These and more we'll be discussing on this show this morning. I have with me Sam Nwoko, the deputy editor of the Nigerian Tribune. Good to have you here once again, Sam Nwoko.
Good to be here once again. Good morning, viewers.
Some have talked about centralization of resources, and they have talked about how deep federalism is in Nigeria. How has that affected Nigeria in terms of wealth distribution and the agitation of some states, especially when it comes to 13% derivation? There has been a question mark on that for a long, long time. What's your thought on all of this? And how do we mix all of this together to eventually get to that point where Nigeria feels that wealth distribution is the way to go, or if that's not the way to go?
Thank you. Nigeria's oil wealth has remained one of the most opaque items in our life as a nation. And in being this opaque, they have the relevant petroleum agencies funded and run by the national government, which always has its own peculiar ways of doing things. And those peculiar ways are almost not known to Nigerians. To a large extent, we find that whatever the NNPC does remains in the NNPC. And whatever the other subsidiaries of the NNPC do, they remain there. So over the years, the agitations have been, springing up here and there, and until the return of democracy in 1999, nobody knew that some of these things could be whittled down. Some of these things could be deregulated, the deregulation of that sector. And eventually the government did not deregulate everything. They deregulated the downstream sector. So when they deregulated the downstream sector, they kept the upstream sector. The upstream sector is the far into the ocean and so on. That is why a state like Cross River is finding it difficult. They are still battling with Akwa Ibom State still today on some of the oil wells that belong to that region. So that's why many times when we talk about oil and oil-related issues, nobody mentions Eket in Akwa Ibom State, which is a huge oil-producing area. But we really look at many towns in River State. We look at Boni, we look at Finima, we look at the Kalabari areas, and all those areas. And we also look at what brought about the Niger Delta agitation. So, to a large extent, we don't understand how this run, how this, our oil life is run. So, coming now to answer your question in direct terms, it's a huge change from the norms which we know about our oil life. And we want to see how the NNPCL, which is what it is now, and the other areas of its operations, the Petroleum Pipeline Management Agency, the upstream, Nigerian upstream, downstream management, the refineries, all the subsidiaries. Let's see how they are going to talk about what has happened now. Because this, today now we have a gazetted executive order which has changed the way our revenue in oil, our oil revenue will be handled.
Okay, if you look at the current framework in Nigeria, especially when it comes to upstream and downstream oil sector, do you think the federal government's control of oil revenues has strengthened national unity, or it has further disintegrated that into lesser state independence?
Now, if you take what the government has done, let me even give you something from the past. I remember a minister from Ibadan here. He was the Minister of State for Finance. His name is Remi Babalola.
Right.
He did several things. He made very eloquent presentations to ensure that oil revenue in Nigeria is paid into the federation account. Part of the things he did was to say that NNPC cannot be an independent financing, a kind of independent revenue center by itself, whereas it is a product of the federal government. He made very eloquent arguments, very valid arguments, but the powers that be at that time, because it was always a debate at the Federal Executive Council, and he didn't win, not because he didn't have very good arguments, but because some people, those who are benefiting from that sector, did not allow him to achieve his aim. But everybody left that place knowing, in fact, he became a pariah among the ministers, especially the ministers from certain parts of the country. He became a pariah. They didn't want to, they are like, you want to remove our source of income, our pot of soup.
The cash cow.
You want to kill our cash cow, you want to remove our pot of soup. So he did that, but they understood the eloquence in the sense in what he was saying. But they didn't allow it, they didn't work. Before then, there was also somebody, I'm trying to remember the man's name, he's from the north too. He made a similar argument. In fact, that one, they shot him down because he's from that part of the country. So all I'm trying to see here is the achievement. I remember last served under President President Obasanjo. That was how long ago this thing has been on the table. And it was flowing from the issue of deregulation of that time. So today, that which had been a very serious misnomer looks like it has been corrected now, because I personally do not believe that the NNPC should be getting money and spending it the way it likes. And people will run, the government will now run to it with the cap in hand to say, give us some money, and remittances are according to how they wish and so on. That is why today, when you want to open the books of the NNPC, it is something you can't complete. You can't comprehend. So for me, it is not going to win the states of what they, but when more money enters into the federation account, there will be more money for states to share. Whether it now gets to the common man and so on is another kettle of fish. That one is another problem in itself. But for now, let's see how this...
okay, now let's talk about 30% deduction for oil exploration.
Yes.
Which has been a question for a long time. Why do we have to spend 30% of income on exploration, on things that are not even sure? Why can't we concentrate on what we currently have? And if there are times we think we need to explore, we will do that. But a continuous deduction of 30%.
Yes, ad infinitum. Deducting the money whether we are exploring or
not.
Now that is why.
And where is the money going?
That is why we have during Buhari, there was this. I don't want to call it a media blitz, which we did over the Bauchi Basin, Gombe Basin. And they said that time that we had discovered oil in the north. They, you know, in fact, since I was a child, there had been exploration in the Lake Chad Basin. You know, that one we've been hearing about it since we were children. Then the Gombe Basin, you know, and so on and so forth. During Buhari, I remember very well that there were photographs, there was inauguration, there was jubilation in the north that we have found oil and things like that. And that's because NNPC set aside a huge chunk of its revenue. In fact, it's a compulsory deduction because they have, I mean, you just have to pay it whether you like it or not. So now it is going to be at the discretion of the federal government because all that revenue is coming to the federation account. If you now have to explore, you have to give us some very cogent. They are exploring in Lagos. Right. Not many people know. There is still going on in the, I think it's Badagry Basin and things like that. So the entire change in the fabric of the NNPC revenue and expenditure is going to mean a whole lot for both the agency. Now you will see that NNPC will begin to employ people you and I know, unlike before now when they will employ people you don't know. Because as a day here, so I don't know who they work for NNPC. You won't hear people talk about it. You just see them they will just do. So all I'm trying to say is that a lot of things
there will be no transparency in what
there is, in fact, the opacity is alarming. It's mind-blowing. You know nothing that goes on in NNPC. I once met someone who works in NNPC, and he changed that when Volkswagen Jetta came. They will buy them new cars and so on. So I'll keep wondering. I say, this place where they work, how do you, because he used to change cars so very often, and new cars. He said, no, he said they will just bring the cars and say, sign for it, and he will sign for it. You know, so that is even some of the minute, the younger, the low people,
the low cadre.
You know, so this change, I think, is desirable so that we can understand the framework within which that NNPC operates. And with the Petroleum Industry Act, which Pengasan pointed at, these changes are still going to create some new items for us to look at.
So these new arrangements by the federal government, does it align with the spirit of the Constitution, or does it contradict the idea of federalism in the first place?
Now, for me, on that, because I had thought about that argument, when a law is inconsistent with the provisions of the Constitution, that law remains subject to the dictates of the Constitution. So Petroleum Industry Act, is subject to what the Constitution says. But now the president did not come by way of law to alter the Petroleum Industry Act, but he came by way of executive order. In fact, they gazetted,
which overrides whatever it is in the Constitution.
Whatever it is, they are going to implement. And he has also promised in the speech he made towards that, he said they are going to do a comprehensive amendment of that law. To
be ratified, to suit the executive order.
Yes, that is on the one hand. On the other hand, when the Petroleum Industry Act law, when it was the bill, I know very well that the bill presented, pushed and fought for by Desiani Alison Madueke, which we have vilified today, is completely different from what was eventually passed. In fact, what was passed was like a carcass of that bill of that time. But the woman had already become so vilified that if anything she says, nobody will listen to her.
Count anymore.
Nobody will count her as anything. So she had to keep quiet. But I know that the law that was passed, that is being implemented, is a carcass. It's like a skeleton of what that law was originally. So today, the chicken is coming home to roost, one way or the other.
All right, now let's talk about the 13% derivation. Most people have spoken about this, and it has raised so much dust, especially in the oil-producing states. When it comes to exploration, in some places, is 13% derivation enough for oil-producing states?
This one interests me so much because I was neck deep. I was in Rivers State.
Because compared to the damages done to these places,
to those communities,
Diogoni and so many other places,
I was in Rivers
which
State.
the cleanup has not been completed till today.
I was serving as a correspondent in Rivers State when the 13% derivation was on the front burner of Nigeria's politics. Dr. Peter Odili was the governor of Rivers State. Let me speak from what happened in Rivers State. I know a man called Peter Side. What's this Baba called? This man, I will remember his name. He's dead now. He was an elderly man. He was the one. I even wrote about him. Now, when this 13% derivation came, it was fought vehemently again. In fact, the derivation the people wanted was more than that. In fact, that's when we began to hear of offshore and onshore dichotomy. Now, for many communities, if you go to a place like Masambri, if you go to a place like, there is Akukutoru, there is Asaritoru, there is Degema, there is Buguma, Abonema. If you go to those communities, you will know that Nigeria don't suffer. If you go to Ijaw communities, the backwaters, if you are traveling from, say, Akinema to Engeni, if you are going into the hinterland, if you enter through Ahoda, and you are going to maybe Yogba or Ondoni, and you will see what is happening in those communities, you will weep for those people. We also have to remember that things like that brought about Niger Delta agitation. Things like that brought about Niger Delta militancy. Things like that brought about the clash, which became the problem we are still dealing with today. So much that Obasanjo had to go to the Niger Delta and say, if you think you are strong, bring your guns, let's face ourselves. And they told him, say, no, that is not what we want. We want you to do something about things that are happening in our environment. Eventually, that's what gave rise to people like Asari Dokubo, Felix Tuodolo, Kimse Okoko, and now people who are benefiting from it, like a government, these ones are even the newer generation of those agitations. When the agitation was very hot, in fact, I had to run away from a place called Agri Road, because it's the street where the Ijaw National Council had its headquarters. I think it's number 4. It's on the street corner at Agri. It's a very popular place. We used to go there, sit down so that you can hear these people. You can hear the arguments. You can feel what they feel. It's in old Port Harcourt town. Now, when all these things were happening, Harold Dapabriye was part of the people who were called to say, Chief Harold Dapabriye is late now. He is the man that came up with the word Niger Delta. And then they came up with the word derivation. Give us something as a compensation for what you are doing to our environment. It is what people like Ken Saro-Wiwa we are fighting for. It is what led to the ruining, so to say, of the life of the Ogoni 9 and the Ogoni 13 and all the Ogoni issues, which led to the formation of the Oputa panel, which had to hear that, and so on and so forth. But overall, if you go and consider what is taking place in those places and see the backwardness in Ogoni, up till the time I left Rivers State, I know very well that in places like Pean, in places like even Bori, as cosmopolitan as Bori was by then, places like Kedere and Bidere and so on, bicycle is what people use as a means of transportation. Bicycle.
Was that bad?
It was that bad. I know, because I did a story on it, that the place we read in social studies as children, Afam Power Station, where you had a power station, I knew that the time I was in Rivers State up to 2005-6, there was no public power supply in Afam, where we generated power, where we read about Afam power station. I knew that the conductors that were used to supply electricity to Port Harcourt was copper, which made the lights always low. If you turn on light in Port Harcourt, I was living in Diobu, I was living in my one, you know, the lights go day low, and it was all delay that came and he changed everything to say, okay, let's even improve. And the final of it is that in the whole of Bayelsa State of that time, there was no public electric. Bayelsa State in its entirety was not on the national grid. They were using gas electricity generated by companies like I wouldn't know if I can mention them, Ajib, Chevron, all those are oil exploration companies. And that was why when the agitation came, when people saw development in other places and saw the condition they were living in. So, to answer your question in one sentence, 13% was just like a token. Something like Ajegba Mapami kind of thing. Just take and leave me, let my Jacob. So, I know that the people demanded for more than 13%, and they demanded for at least 25%. But the government, I mean, it's all part of negotiation. They gave them 13%, but it still does not compensate. Because construction in Bayelsa, when Alamesia was the governor, a road, a kilometer of road in a place like Oyo State was not up to 500 million naira. No, 100 million. Back in the days when naira was still naira, before it came to 1,000 plus. Construction of a kilometer of road was in the neighborhood of 100 million naira. But that time, construction of a kilometer of road was already like 500 million in places like that, because you use at least a year to sand fill. When you sand fill for 1 year, you now go back when the sand had sunk, before you now begin the sand earthwork on the place where you want to build roads. So it was that bad. So for me, I think 13% was, they took it and said, okay, at all, kind of thing. Yes. So now, on whether it is going to create dichotomy and alter the revenue sharing formula and so on, I think it's going to increase it, because states will come together and say, now that we have this, we can get this. Okay. And the dreams of people like Remi Babalola and Dahatu, that man, I'm trying to remember his name, is now coming true.
Okay, now you mentioned something about the offshore and onshore
dichotomy. Yeah,
it was a major flashpoint, and was whether the question was whether offshore oil revenue should count towards derivation. Now, all producing states argue that it should. The federal government initially excluded offshore revenue, which led to the legal battle. The Supreme Court ruled in favor of the federal government, but political pressure led to the passage of the allocation of revenue, abolition of dichotomy, and the application of the Principle of Derivation Act. This law ended the offshore-onshore dichotomy, allowing offshore revenues to be included in derivation calculation. So, if not for the court case, so it would have been just one of it.
Yes, it should have been one of it.
And it would be less than what they currently get.
Yes. You know, Ondo State was part of the suit, and especially Cross River State, because most of the oil Cross River has is offshore.
Offshore.
And once you get to 32 nautical miles from what we read and what we learned, once you get to 32 nautical miles, it belongs to the federal government. So, Akwa Ibom has a cat. You know, we used to have a team in this country that was playing very well, that was in the National League called Mobile Pegasus. They were based in Eket. And if you go play them that time, in fact, it was a joy to go and cover matches in those places back in the time. Why is this? Because the oil revenue was there and you could see it. So with that sheet, it also ensured that the abolition of the dichotomy brought about a slight marginal increase in the revenue accruing to the states. But now, with NNPCs, because sometimes NNPC will not pay into the revenue account, they will tell you that they spent this and did that and so on, like I talked about the opacity in their operations. Now, everything will be, everybody will see and kuro like this and know that NNPC, no, we know. Because I remember people like Amechi agitated so very, this same Rotimi Amechi. Now, there is going to be a world of difference.
Okay, now let me ask you this, just before we go. Do you see genuine political will for restructuring revenue control in Nigeria?
That's a very big one. One of the things I have decided to console myself with is that right now we are taking steps. We are taking steps. We are taking steps, you know, and I am sure that the more we grow, because what all this tells me is that nationhood is a journey indeed. Remi Babalola had it as a vision. He fought. He did all within his power, but it didn't work. But today, it has come on at the snap of a finger. Executive bill, gazetted. Bam, go and implement. It's just like subsidy is gone. So it's a journey, and already the steps have been taken. So on whether it is going to be, I mean, for sure it's going to revolutionize our revenue system. It's going to revolutionize our expenditure system. Yes, more money for the people who see the money, and more money for those who are at the right places to make demands for the money. But I don't know how it's going to affect the masses. But from the look of things, it is easier to drag a Sheyi Makinde and say, Your Excellency, we can block the kind of protest that took place at
The National Assembly.
Circular Road.
Okay.
That eventually got the attention of
The governor.
He will come and say, this thing not be missed at them, and so on and so forth. He will come to you and explain. People saw him. Abi, he met with them and explained. So it is easier to get at a Sheyi Makinde than it will be to get at a Bola Tinubu.
If it means more money for oil producing states, what does it say for other states that are not producing oil?
It cuts across. Because the revenue increase means you get more from the federation account. It's just that the oil-producing states are going to get more by way of the derivation, which still stands. So that's only the difference. If you were getting 5 naira before, you can get 550 or 600 or even 700. While your oil-producing counterparts will get as much as maybe 800. That's just the difference. But whether or whether permit that language, it is still an increase in the revenue for the states, all the states.
Okay, if you had to recommend one reform that will bring a balance to fiscal, bring fiscal balance in Nigeria, what would that be?
Now, it will be first for the government to agree that what accrues to the federal government is way too much. The 52-point-something% they get, for me as an individual, I think it's I mean, let the federal government shed some of its powers, and let that state you told us to go and hold responsible, let them get more money. Let local government autonomy be indeed. I know that in 1999 to 2003 plus up to 2005-06, local government autonomy, we had local government autonomy. In Rivers State, Ogubolo local government was not a PDP state, PDP local government. Ogubolo, there are two local governments in Okrika land, Okrika and Ogubolo local governments. Ogubolo was not PDP, it was APP. Okrika local government was PDP. In the same enclave, the entire Ogoni land was mostly APP. They are always, as people say on the streets, they are always in the opposition. But the governor was a PDP with all the other areas, including Wike's Obiakpo then, before he became the chairman, and Ikwere local government, Ahoda East, Ahoda West, Abu Audua, Andoni, Opobo, Nkoro, Boni, and so on and so forth. We are all, all the upland, Emoha, and so on and so forth, Ikwere, Eche, we are all PDP. So he had the majority. And when the money comes, it goes to those local governments. And you see what they were doing. That's why Wiki was performing very well as a local government chairman. But now, things have changed. Governors have assumed
the responsibility
of
local
dictating
governments.
how local governments are run, because the constitution, one way or the other, allows that. So, and that makes the difference. So what I expect to see in terms of what what the revenue does and how it happens is that if the federal government can, continue the reforms, expand it, bring in more for the states, give them more responsibilities, shed some of the roads, federal road, state road, and so on, that kind of thing, shed some of these things, allow local issues, land matters, and so on, not to go beyond states where the land is domiciled, since the governor is the person in charge of the land. Let those things not go to Supreme Court, which does not know how, So when the federal government sheds some of these responsibilities and let the judiciary get its money as it should, the legislature as it should, and so on, I'm sure it is going to be a very huge step forward for this country.
Just to back what you said of, the federal government currently gets 52.68%, whilst the governments, all 36 states, get 26.72%, and 774 local governments get 20.60%. And that's, for me, just like you said, there's a little bit of the margin is
the federal government. There's a road that passes through my community in Ikwano local government area of Abia State. It's called Umuahia. I call it Benin Road. When I was growing up, when they took me to the village, my mom told me that road was constructed long before the war. He said it was white people that constructed the road. The road has only been receiving what I would call palliative repairs up till now. And it is less than 30 kilometers from Umuahia to Ikot Emene. So if someone like Akpabio is going home and he's not flying, if he finds himself, say worried to do something, instead of flying, he can just travel and enjoy the country and pass through that road, and he will enter his community. But he won't, because the road is bad. Now they have awarded that road, the governor of the state now, OT, who is a product of a proper recruitment system, because he took the war fought by Professor Nena of Futo, who said, no, I'm not going to declare a wrong candidate. So now he has done the road, they are doing the road, they are working on it. And all I'm trying to say is that if the federal government can say that Umuahia Ikot Emene road, I mean, they don't have any reason to, waiting for some federal government with those roads. Look at the road from Oleyo, Chipa Garage down to that community is a federal road. The road from JLN to Molete,
and that responsibility should go to the
state, a federal road,
because they know the
so
direction. Why
will the federal government be administering those roads, whereas the people who use those roads don't even sometimes remember or even have an idea that those roads belong to the federal government? We can allow Abuja Lokoja Road, we can allow Lagos Ibadan Express Road, we can allow Benin Asaba, Shagam, all those roads, the trunk A roads. Let the federal government continue to maintain those ones. But the other ones that go into the hinterland, let the states manage those roads. Then we'll be able to hold the states more responsible. We'll be able to say, Mr. Governor, in fact, we can go and sit in the government house. By the time he flogs us for 3-4 days, he will say, we'll allow people, permit the language. Let us listen to them. And then we'll be able to get something. But the federal government is far from the people. So those are some of the little things I think we can do to shed some of the powers which has kept the government far from the people.
All right, Sam Oko, thank you for joining us on the show this morning.
Yeah, thank you. And finally, the man I'm trying to remember, his name is Haman Tukor.
Okay.
Yes, he was in charge of the revenue mobilization. He was the chairman that time. He also fought for the revenue of the NNPC.
Going straight to the federation account.
So he also failed. In fact, he couldn't fight as much as Remy Babalola did. They quickly told him.
They shut him down.
They shut him down.
All right, thank you, Sam Oko. And then as Nigeria confronts economic pressures and renewed calls for restructuring, the issue of oil revenue control remains central to the future of governance and the federal balance. The challenge is finding equilibrium, preserving national unity while encouraging fiscal responsibility and innovation at the state level. Appreciation to Sam Nwoko of the Nigerian Tribune for his insight. And this has been the big story on Daybreak Live. Stay informed, stay engaged. The conversation continues. Samson Balogun is my name. Good morning.
Need a professional space to bring your vision to life? Dominion Television Studios offers state-of-the-art facilities perfect for your next broadcast, commercial, corporate video, or live event. With flexible rental options, cutting-edge equipment, and a supportive team, we provide the perfect environment for high-quality productions. Unleash your creativity. For bookings, email us at marketing@dominion.org.
I thank you for staying tuned. Of course, now we switch focus to something trending across the newsprint, or maybe not newsprint particularly, maybe the social media, or if any kind of way, it's just trending, and that's Trend Watch today, where we end to United States Congress submits explosive report to Trump demand sanctions, withholding of funds. That's exactly the conversation. Switching to Samson Balogun, that's the story. They have brought a report to United States President Donald Trump about what the Congress have been able to establish, especially in the country Nigeria, and they have submitted. So there seems to be a lot of demands and sanctions, withholding of funds, all of that in the mix. So this is exactly where we are in the country.
Well, it's quite unfortunate that Nigeria happens to be in this kind of situation. And, you know, when I said a little bit unfortunate, it's because Nigeria as a nation should be a nation that blesses other nations. We've got all the resources, we've got the human capital. But unfortunately, we find ourselves to be a son of a wealthy man that seems to be a beggar. Okay? If Nigeria has this much, and we still have to depend on aid from the United States and some other countries across the world, then it begs the question of leadership. Where did we get it wrong? We have, as much as people would want to condemn junta governments in some places, I mean, it's an aberration anyway. It should not happen, especially when there is a democratically elected government. It should not be overthrown because the Constitution provides a room that you give them that regard and they continue to rule. Though you can force changes, not through radical means, but through electoral means. And if Nigeria now gets to this stage where other countries seem to be looking up to Nigeria, and then Nigeria seems to be looking up to other countries too, then there's a question about how we are being ruled or governed in this country. But then some people have said there's no governance in Nigeria, it's rulership. Okay, we are being ruled, we are not being governed. There are two different things. Governance considers what the people want, what they really need. Rulership is whether you like it or not, this is what we are going to do. I mean, it's a different thing. But if you now get to a stage where we are being threatened with sanctions, we are being threatened with withholding of funds, which originally, I mean, do we really need to get these funds from them in the first place? Can we just call their bluff and say, yes, we have enough in Nigeria and we can survive without you? Do we have to go to the IMF, the World Trade, the World Bank to get loans when we know what the deposit is in Nigeria? Till today, in fact, it is still, even under this administration, that Nigeria has moved a little bit close to the OPEC threshold of, exploration, the quota given to Nigeria and some other oil-producing countries. We can easily work on that. Let's boost production, sell more oil, and depend on what we have. We don't have to do too much, okay? Nigerians are not expecting too much from you. It is only that government would want to do too much just because they want to take so much. And that's the problem we have.
Of course, let's just take a few comments, maybe one or two comments from what Nigerians are saying across the online, maybe segment, should we say. But perhaps we can just move on to say, I think it's very important, as we note, even as we round off this program, that it's very important that we also establish that when you have too many masters, it's a problem. When you are submitting and reporting to too many people, it might be a big deal for you. And of course, that's where I would draw the curtains. My name is Andolo Akpoido. Thank you very much for joining us on this edition.
All right, Samson Balogun is my name. Until tomorrow, we shall be meeting us again on another interesting edition of Daybreak Live right here on Dominion Television. I say keep being good out there, keep being safe. And if you see something, say something. Bye for now.
Need a professional space to bring your vision to life? Dominion Television Studios offers state-of-the-art facilities perfect for your next broadcast, commercial, corporate video, or live event.